Alright. Flash is out. And for whatever reason, the red blur also includes a bunch of silver bullets. I think I've done an episode on this before, but I want to bring it up again because more have been introduced into the game, and we really need to talk about this topic again. And a great deal of them, some of them oddly specific, have shown up in the game. Silver bullets are things that they're characters that have something to them that specifically counters another effect. Now, originally, when we first saw some of the silver bullet characters that did exist, I'm going to go... Giant Size X-Men and 75th Anniversary had some of the best examples. Giant Size X-Men had characters like Harry Leland, who stopped characters within a certain range from charging, hypersonicking, and running shotting. They had Kid Zoom, who stopped anybody but him from using hypersonic. You had Leech, who stopped you from taking power actions, period. And he had stealth to boot. Holy smokes. So, you gotta think, these characters had their very specific functions, but a lot of these characters also had very low point values, right? Because their full function was to create this effect. Harry Leland, as we saw George Masu get to a second place against Alex Avila, using it with Black Adam to stop his opponent from running, shotting, hypersonicking, and charging into him. So you can see where having a silver bullet might help your team, especially if you have a specific element that you want to protect. Now, the Flash, notwithstanding Bill, who's shown up here, because Bill is how do I put this? He's a silver bullet to the line of fire. There's a lot of things out there that are stopping you from being able to draw a line of fire, and also creating a lot of barriers. Bill helps you get around that. It's kind of important that this kind of character exists to a certain degree, because right now it seems that stopping a line of fire from being drawn is the silver bullet to Pulse Wave. It's been seen with the ruling with the Indigo battery. It's been seen with the rulings in relation to Namor in the water. It's consistently the way it works is that if line of fire can't be drawn, Pulse Wave can't work. Now, it's not a matter of is blocked, it's line of fire can't be drawn. So, now when I say that, of course, that makes him very potent and a very big silver bullet. A bigger silver bullet than a lot of the other characters I'm going to talk about. Now, the reason I want to talk about silver bullets is they fit into the metagame, whether you like it or not. But they also might fit into your team, because you might see a weakness in your team. Some of the times the characters are very low points. Other times they're like Midnighter and they're 100 points. Midnighter is oddly specific against close combat expert. Specifically specific. Midnighter, of course, has an ability where he can stop your close combat expert from being plus 2 to anything, plus 2 to attack, plus 2 to damage, or plus 1 and plus 1, and instead is just plus 1 to one of those. Oddly specific. And then we get characters like Turtle, who actually kind of bring Iron Pharaoh back from the kind of crevasse he's falling into. Iron Pharaoh sits in the back area, stops you from drawing line of fire to him with a barrier. The tactic is keep him in the back area, barrier him up, block line of fire from him, that kind of stuff. Now Patrick took that to the next level and said, you know what, I'm just going to have a character that can get him out of there. That's why he won Worlds. But Turtle adds an annoying element to the game that will help a character like Iron Pharaoh. Iron Pharaoh's Falcon is a 3 movement, is a special object that can move 3, or special hindering terrain that can move 3 squares each turn as a free action. It's not going to be hindered in any way, shape, or form by Turtle. Turtle says whenever any other character moves 5 or more squares, they take an extra action token, and pending the fact that they can't take an extra action token, they take a penetrating damage. Particularly strong when you consider how far the map is. The map's about a 24 square map, if I remember correctly, and you got to get to your opponent somehow, right? Now, Turtle is going to sit there and say, I don't want to get there. I'm going to make you come to me and work for it. Work extra hard. These extra action tokens are very detrimental when you think about it. When you're only able to take an action, if you want to move across the board with a character, like let's say you have that 17 movement Kingdom Come Flash. You get him across there where you got to wait a turn and rest, right? By that point, Iron Pharaoh has been able to move his special object or a special hindering 2 times. That's 6 squares. 6 squares on a 24 square map is a quarter of the map. So he's able to move that and still ignore some terrain while he's doing it. So now, granted, I'm not saying that was a good tactic, what I just described. Moving your flash across the board is probably a bad idea. Let's talk about that, right? I all of a sudden went Jack Nicholson when I was saying that, too. It's like, don't you do that there, buddy. Don't you do it. But you can understand where Turtle will help a team like this. Whereas, oddly specifically enough, we have Jack Hawksmoor, who will punish you for still being in the starting area. Not fully silver bulleted, though, because he's 85 points. He's pretty solid in stats, but mostly supporty stats. Like, he does his own kind of barrier thing with the elevated terrain. He moves through elevated terrain really wacky-like. But oddly enough, his ability only works on the 3rd turn with characters who are in the starting area. That's not that bad for the Iron Pharaoh, because all he's got to do is take the first 2-3 turns, the Iron Pharaoh isn't really going to take any non-free actions, so he just shoves his way out of the hindering area, starting area. So, you got to look at some of these silver bullets and say, is this character worth being obnoxious to this guy? Is it worth that specific team? Is that team going to be my problem? Is that team even going to show up? Now, one of the things I mentioned in the Meta Lab when I was talking with Mike, Jay, and Jordan is that there's enough things that exist that can scare the Iron Pharaoh away. Gives enough players enough reasons to not play the Iron Pharaoh. But for all intents and purposes, these things might not even show up on the board. Let's be brutally honest. I mean, you might go a whole tournament and never see a turtle. I mean, he's talked about a lot. He's going to slow down the game if he does show up. But if nobody brings turtle, he's not going to cause anybody any problems, right? If nobody brings Jack Hawksmoor, he's not going to cause the Iron Pharaoh any headaches. If nobody brings the aspect that's going to stop that team is still going to be able to run rampant. But the idea, the psychology is, these things exist, is it worth playing that team now? Right? So it's kind of a two-way street when these silver bullets exist. Now, when we want to talk about oddly specific effects, let's talk about the Doctor. The Doctor has a trait that says your opponent can't use mind control as a free action, nor can they use mind control on friendly characters. Now, it does have a couple overarching things that are greater than what I just said. For one, ever since the 2013, I believe, rules changed, mind control went from a power action to either a range combat or close combat action. What that does mean is that you can use running shot or charge with mind control. Now, I've seen it go across the board a couple times. A couple people have mentioned this idea that characters like Rival can be really, really potent if you do something like use him to charge mind control and alpha primitive. Because you can, if you're a friendly character to the alpha primitive, you can still use mind control on them. Now that will start getting his speed tokens up, and this is just one of those strategies that people have talked about, right? But then you got a character like the Doctor who says, well, not only can you not use it as a free action, you can't use it on friendly characters. So that's a double stop on him, right? Now, the other point, too, is that Doctor is playable at 50 points, which is the lower end of things, and he comes with running shot, psychic blast, barrier, and probability control. He's kind of a Scarlet Witch light, if you think about that, where he's stopping that friendly mind control. There's a whole set of strategies that are actually currently based on the mind control, the effect of mind controlling friendly figures, as well as the existence of Brother Voodoo, or getting characters who can running shot or charge and use mind control. And Doctor has actually come out and said no. Now, the other part of the Doctor, though, is that when you play him at the 50-point value, you get 4 clicks. No Mystics, so he's not that as good as the Scarlet Witch. 5 range, and no flight. So these are all kinds of things that make him... Is it worth putting the Doctor in? So now this is where it comes back to that idea of practice. When you're practicing with teams, you've got to go on the internet, look up what's being played, and practice against it. And that's where you're going to decide whether or not you're going to put little things. Now, the tweaking phase is I believe, the next episode. Tweaking your team. And tweaking your team is probably one of the trickiest portions of the game, I'd have to say. And I'm going to talk about it in conjunction with support characters. But practicing with your team helps you choose your silver bullets and whether or not the silver bullet is worth having. if your team will lose to Iron Pharaoh, it might be worth it to put an Indigo Battery in it. Or, pending that, it might be worth it to find a way to kill Bill. I haven't actually come up with a specific counter to Bill other than deal 3 damage to him. I mean, that's pretty much the only... Yeah, deal 3 damage to Bill. That's the only way I can hard counter him. And there's, of course, ways to do that. I mean, if they're not playing Turtle and Bill, there's a character that does that across the board. Anyway, he's red and he looks really cool. And I keep picking him up to build teams. Of course, I'm talking about King of Kong Flash. So, a couple things to think about with regards to choosing your silver bullet. Does your team need that silver bullet? And is that silver bullet going to specifically counter what's affecting you? So something to think about, and of course, as I said, it comes with practice because practice makes your team better.
Metafix is brought to you by Majestics Comics, Collectibles, and Games down in Costa Mesa, California, near the Orange County Fairgrounds, where they play Heroclix 3 times a week in that store. Don't live anywhere near Costa Mesa, California, or the Orange County Fairgrounds like us? Check down below, we have a link to their web store and their eBay store, where they're always updating with all kinds of new Heroclix singles. Patrick's winning them all the time, so it's a good time to check whenever there's a big tournament around and he's winning.